inside your bedroom. We stopped counting the days, lost in the rhythm. Physical silence, no need to speak a word. Lay here beside me. Don't wanna move too fast. Your lips on my flask, sipping on your love, sipping on your love. I never dared to ask if we're gonna last. I'm needing all your love, needing all your love. Oh, when you go, oh my God, you know you play your cards so right. Oh, I am a sucker for hearts, just in the dirty clubs and diamonds. Take me, oh my God, oh, but we'll hold our faces straight. Oh, I am a sucker for hearts, I'm a sucker for hearts. Your blood is pumping, I feel it in your veins, surfing your heat waves. Your taste is different, somehow it makes me brave. Chemical nature. Don't wanna move too fast. Your lips on the flask, sipping on your love, sipping on your love. Oh, when you go, oh my God, you know you play your cards so right. Oh, I am a sucker for hearts, just in the dirty clubs and diamonds. Take me, oh my God, oh, but we'll hold our faces straight. Oh, I am a sucker for hearts, I'm a sucker for hearts, hearts, hearts. I'm a sucker for hearts, hearts, hearts. I'm a sucker for hearts. Oh my God, I'm a fool, thought I'd never fall into you. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's so cruel how I'm loving the things you do. Ooh, yeah. Oh, when you go, oh my God, you know you play your cards so right. Oh, I am a sucker for hearts, just in the dirty clubs and diamonds. Take me, oh my God, oh, but we'll hold our faces straight. Oh, I am a sucker for hearts, I'm a sucker for hearts, hearts, hearts. I'm a sucker for hearts, hearts, hearts. I'm a sucker for hearts. Your lips on my flask, sipping on your love, sipping on your love. I'm a sucker for hearts.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Can everyone see me? This is the first live stream we've done since we had those weird tech difficulties. I think the issue was that my computer updated. I think that's what happened. I don't think it was anything else, so hopefully we don't have a problem from here. Fingers crossed. Alicia is here. Perfect. At least there's that. I had to ask because, after that first week and then last week, I just went ahead and canceled because we had kind of a busy weekend and I am getting ready to go back to work full time and then also in the middle of all this writing stuff. And I just kind of needed a weekend to relax and take a little extra time for myself before all the craziness happened. So I went ahead and I canceled last week. And I'm glad I did because I did have a nice time to myself. I got to jump on some things I was reading for fun. I just finished today, actually, like an hour ago. I finished reading Lessons in Chemistry. That book is amazing. I highly recommend. It made me absolutely livid. It also made me cry and it made me really happy. And by the end, I felt really hopeful. So it was one of those kind of journeys, and it is sort of told as like a journey of life. So it's told from the beginning of really the beginning of this woman's career all the way up through a good deal of her life, and I loved it. It was amazing. So, highly recommend everyone go read Lessons in Chemistry. I haven't started this one yet, but I just pulled it off my very big and growing TBR shelf. I love Catherine Center. I don't know if anyone has read her books. I read her book, The Bodyguard. I only picked it up. I literally picked it up on the way to the checkout in my local indie bookstore. I had gone in for, I don't even remember what I went in for, but I picked up something else and I saw the cover of The Bodyguard and had to have it. And so I didn't know anything about it other than it was clearly a romance based on the cover. And two, it was beautiful. So I picked it up and I bought it without even looking at it. And I'm so glad I did because it was the fluffy romance I needed when I read it. And so I did the same thing yesterday when I went in. If you've watched the vlog, you got the whole book haul because I did go to the bookstore yesterday. I got kind of a day to myself out and about. I went and sat in a cafe and I wrote for a little bit. That was really fun. I'm definitely going to make that more of a routine for myself. Loved it. So, one of the books I picked up was a Catherine Center book, and it's Hello Stranger. Look how cute this is. I love all of the color that are on all of her books, first off, but I think my favorite part and what really sold me with The Bodyguard was that all of these books have this beautiful floral design on the spine. I love it. So, this is my next book that I'm reading. I decided I'm so busy in August and then into some of September. I'm a school counselor. We basically do the entire schedule for the whole school. And so it's a lot of pressure. And then we have to change, tweak, and then try to make everybody happy. So it is a lot of work right off the bat. And I decided, out of everything on my TBR shelf, I wanted a fun, really light and easy read. And Catherine Center is not only an amazing writer, but her stories are very much that. So I picked that up. That's my next read. So if you've read it, let me know. Tell me what you thought. And if you haven't read it, maybe you could go get it and we could read it together. That would also be kind of fun. So that is a very long introduction. So what is everyone working on tonight? I am back and at it with the vampire romance. I, just like last year, failed at Camp NaNoWriMo July, and I kind of knew that that was a high probability just because of everything that comes into play at the end of July. But I wanted to try and push myself to do as much as I could. And so I'm feeling very good about where I stand. I'm in the last third of the book. This is the point when I had to hit pause and think for a minute about like the between moments. I am a pantser, so I know beginning, middle, and end, but I don't know all the little scenes all the time in between. And the last third is where the pacing in my brain was a little muddy. So yesterday, part of what I did when I was out and about in that cafe was to sit and think a little bit about when all of the events need to happen to see how they all fall in place at the end. So I have that figured out and mapped out, and that is what I'm working on tonight. So, working on the vampire romance, title coming very soon. I already have the title coming soon to you, and I am 66,842 words in. So that is where I am starting. How is everyone else doing? This is a night to relax. I have 3 kids, first day of school tomorrow. Wow, including a high schooler. Oh my gosh. I totally get it. we don't start school for, I think we have another, really, it's just another week and a couple of days, I think. I have my planner here. We start the 16th. Okay, so it is next week. Oh my gosh. So for me, because I start a little early, it's kind of a rush to get the schedule exactly where it needs to be by the first day of school for everybody. So that's where I am. The first day of school for us is always a blur because so many students decide to wait until the first day to come and enroll. So we will be very busy on the first day of school. So I'm only taking it a day at a time. But I know those first days of schools for families can be a lot too because it's a new day for your kid. They're going into usually a brand new grade, sometimes a brand new school. And that can be a lot. So I know that it's a lot for families also, not just me. So I'm sure it'll go great. Definitely take some time for yourself, do all the things tonight. It'll be fine. I am reading The Death and Birth of Bella Erdman. I don't know that I've heard of that one. Ooh, I'm gonna have to look that one up. Is that another thriller? I don't read near enough thrillers. That's something that I should rotate into the mix a little bit more because I do like them. I really like them. They're my favorite kind of movies too. I like that kind of a storyline. Um, but maybe it's just that I'm so ingrained online in the fantasy romance community because it's what I tend to write that I don't see a lot of things, at least very far outside of that. I see a lot of fantasy romance, but I also see a lot of romance because of, I think, because they just kind of intersect sometimes. But I don't get a lot of thrillers and mysteries. And that's probably why, just because I don't see it on all of my social media feeds. And yeah, that might be part of it. So I might have to look that one up. Definitely want to read more of those. Alrighty. So I'm going to put it in the comments. I think I already said, but I'm going to post it here anyways. Starting the night at 66,842 words. I'm feeling really good about that number. Like I said, I'm starting to get into the end. So got a long, well, I don't really have a long ways to go. I have a little ways to go. I think once I hit that, once I get to that point, I can already see it in my brain. That's not going to make sense for you guys, but once I hit that singular moment, everything's going to fall into place. And I think it's just going to pour out. I think from there, it's going to go really quickly. So feel pretty good. We do have school coming pretty soon too. So I would really prefer to finish this before school starts. I don't know that if that'll be, don't know if that's going to be super possible. I also get, fun fact, Mistress of Shadows, which is the final book in the Guardians of the Sixth Gate series. Mistress of Shadows will come out on October 30th. And next week, the end of the week, I think it's like Friday. I think it's Friday. I get my book back from my editor. So the way I like to work is I like to do those final edits over the course of one weekend. It just works the best in my schedule because it's the easiest time for me to block out. So my plan next week is to block out the weekend. It's also the last weekend right before school starts. So I think that would be a really good time to do this. And it might be kind of nice just to get a little bit of that alone time that comes along with that. So I'm going to block out next weekend, including our live stream, to finish final edits. And then from there, it's just doing the interior, which comes really fast because I already have the bones because it's the exact same as the last two books. So from there, I'll do the interior and then it's on to cover design. I have reached out to my cover designer. I haven't heard back yet. So hopefully I will hear back from her this week to get kind of a firm date to start. And then we'll be done with that. Winter Witches, I will probably start with my editor sometime in September. We have talked, and she does have some free time in September. I have a little bit I want to adjust with that. I've been thinking on some things, and Winter Witches is much more grown up. It's college age characters, so it's much more of a new adult romance. And so there are a couple scenes I want to adjust. Um, because it would fit for the rest of the scene. I felt like I was lacking something there, and really it was the new adult piece. I think there were a couple scenes that just needed a few more details that I'm not used to being able to insert because I have only ever written young adult. And so I've decided that I'm going to go in and adjust a couple scenes. So I have that to do this week. That shouldn't take very long. The scene's already written out. I'll just drop it in there. But I want to get it in before my editor can look at it. So lots of things happening. Holy moly. And we do have Rita here. Hello, Rita. Greetings. I need to fix this scene. Yes, hello. I hope you're able to fix your scene. I hope we're all able to get a lot of stuff done tonight. I am very, very excited because I haven't done a ton of writing this weekend. I did a little bit yesterday in the cafe, but it wasn't as much as I thought I would get done because I had to stop to do some of that planning. So I'm really excited to write because that is by far my favorite part of the entire process. So I am excited. I say we should go ahead and move into our first sprint of the night. If you are new here, we do 20-minute sprints, three of them during, woo, three of them throughout the night. So we'll start with 20 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll chat a little bit more. So we will see how far I can get. I have already written down my starting point because I like to challenge myself. I work really well under pressure. I actually sometimes work best under pressure. So I like to keep track of my words. All right. So 20 minutes on the clock. First sprint of the night. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. How did everybody do? I got caught right in the middle of the sprint. Oh, and I even took a moment to look at the time. Oh my gosh. So, I am at 67 words now. 67,000, I should say. 256. Holy moly. I feel like my brain is on a whole different planet. So let me do the quick math on that real quick. So that puts me at 410 words. Woo. So that's pretty normal for like a first sprint. Usually the first sprint's the lowest and they go up for me. So I'm feeling good. I am definitely working towards the event. I think it's going to be, I think the end of this chapter will at least start that scene. So I'm hoping that I can do quite a bit tonight to get in a good place because I don't know how much I'll be able to do in the evenings. I'll probably need it tomorrow. Tomorrow, in my counseling world anyway, is schedule pickup for juniors and seniors. So it'll be just a lot of people time for me. People never believe me when I say that I'm not a super chatty, super, like, people just run down my social battery really fast. I'm very much an introvert, as a lot of writers and readers are. People don't always believe me, but I have a very busy day ahead. Just to explain a little bit of it, my counseling team and principals have been emailing back and forth about tomorrow mostly, but also the rest of the week. And I haven't looked since we started our sprint, and I am at 11 unread text messages. So there's a lot going on. I will probably need an evening of writing. I would love to have like another live stream this week. I think that would be really fun. Just to block out the time. It's actually pretty easy to get a writing session in if I do a live stream, believe it or not, just because I don't know, it's much easier to block out the time, I think. It sounds really strange. I don't know. Rita says, I managed to read through that chapter. It's an elemental battle. Ooh. So I underlined the different moves between the two competitors. That may help me get through the mess. Battle scenes can be really hard to write. They're some of my favorite to write. And all of the stories that I've written, even since I was a little kid, have included a lot of physical action, usually in the form of battle scenes, but not always. So I've had quite a bit of practice with it, and I still don't do it super well. So battle is really hard to write. Definitely takes some time to perfect it. And I also do that kind of method where I go and I identify everybody's moves. I try to separate it in my brain and read them separately so that hopefully it'll make sense to a reader. Felicia said, I sent chapter 1 to the line editor. Oh my gosh. Hopefully sending the rest by the end of the week. Congrats. That's huge. That's a big step. Whenever you send a book to an editor, oh my gosh, my brain does two things. First, my brain gets a little nervous every time I send my book off to my editor. My brain's a little nervous because I know even if I've done my best, absolute best, which I always do, that it will always come back with tons of comments. And so I'm a little nervous every time because I know there's going to be issues. But also, it's off to somebody else. It's someone else's problem. And so that is also a little bit of relief. So congrats to you. That is a huge moment in the process. Rita says, people in real life can be so exhausting. I agree. There's something, I really do like talking to people, and that is the best part of my job. Even as an introvert, my favorite part of being a school counselor is when I get to sit with a student and really talk about an issue, which I don't get to do often enough. And sometimes I'm not allowed to because we are not licensed counselors, and school counseling does not enable you to do therapy. That's not the same thing. So I can't sit with a student and have a whole conversation and it be like a therapy session. I'm not allowed to. That's not something we can do in our job description. Even if we're certified, we're not really allowed to. And that's the part that I'm missing. So that's why I'm going back to school in hopes of becoming a clinical therapist eventually, because that's the side of it I like to do the best, is sit with kids with really big issues or people in general and see the growth that happens from one session to the next. That's my favorite. That's my favorite part about characters too, is the character growth. That's why all of my books start characters first and then story, because I think the people matter more than the story in a lot of ways. You have to have a believable character. Doesn't matter how great the story is. I think you have to have a believable character for it to really resonate with readers. So, believe it or not, even though people exhaust me, I do enjoy sitting with them in small doses. Similar when I attend live sprints, I have more focus. Yes. I think for me, it's I keep saying challenge, but I work really well under pressure. I think that when somebody expects something of me or I have a deadline, I come through 110% rather than just hitting the deadline. I challenge myself to do even more than I can, and I end up coming out with something extra, whether that's something I learned along the way, maybe I do more work, or I don't know, maybe I'm able to do that and another project. Somehow having a deadline or working under pressure works well for me. So if I can schedule sprints, the likelihood, I may not write any more than any normal day, but the likelihood of me doing at least the minimum is like 110. I definitely do. Congrats. Yes, that is a huge moment. Super exciting. Nervous to have anyone read my work? My biggest fear is that they like this story. That is a very writer thing to say. And I don't know that people always understand that statement. I definitely know what you mean. Sometimes the idea of being a runaway success can keep you from doing something just as much as being a failure. There could, because either way it can come with a lot of exposure, right? So I understand. I get it. But if it's what you like to do and it's something you believe in, that's what matters far more. And so I try to focus on that part, how I feel, what I like to do, and what I want to do more than the outside sources. And that's how I get past that nervousness when I send stuff off to my editor, because I know at least I've done something that I enjoy, and at least I've presented something the way that I thought it would be fun. And if it's not coming across the same way, that's okay. But also, when it comes to anything with an editor or writing wise, editors are amazing and they're great, but they're not the ones writing your book and they're not the one publishing it. So if they say something that you disagree with, you can also choose to not implement that edit, which I have done. I think it was Guardians of the Sixth Gate. It was before. There were some things in Guardians of the Six Gates that needed to be there for the sequels. And there was one thing in there that my editor suggested was a little bit weird and not concerning. It was a little strange, didn't make a ton of sense to the whole book, but I knew that it would make sense with the others, like the three together. And so I left it in, even though she suggested I change it a little bit. So you are the final say. That always gives me a lot of, gives me a little lets me take a deep breath and yes, You can always decide not to implement something, but editors usually have some good suggestions, even if they're not all, even if you don't do the suggestion the way they say it, usually they're on to something. So you may not agree with the suggestion, but the fact that there's something there sometimes is what matters. Yes. Right. Success definitely scares me, but I'm trying to push through my fears. I think that is what held me back from jumping into indie publishing for a long time. At first I had, like many people, at least in the early days of self-publishing, I just didn't see it as valid, which is completely wrong. It is totally valid. There's a ton of work that goes into it. It's just a different avenue. Um, but from there, after I got past that, I realized a lot of it was me being afraid of what it would look like if it did go well. And that can be a hard thing to tackle sometimes. So you are not the only one, for sure. I think we all go through that before we jump into something new in general, especially something we care a lot about. So I I feel it. It's a lot to tackle, but we can do it. We can all do it. That's what I love about the writing community is people don't gatekeep. It's we share all our resources and all the things and yes. Okay. Maybe now would be a good time to jump into our second sprint. Make sure that you've liked and subscribed to this YouTube channel. If you haven't, this is always the third sprint, but I did send out 2 different emails today. I usually only send out one at a time, but I'm a little behind on my newsletter. So I went ahead and I sent out the August newsletter through my website. So if you're not subscribed, you didn't get it. You don't know what's coming. So go subscribe. But I also sent out an update because my shop is live. Finally, I've only been talking about it like a whole year. So you can now purchase signed copies. You can get a signed book plate. If you already own the paperback copies of my books, you can get the book plate and I'll sign it for you. So that's there. And I'm planning to add more things in the future as I grow. The Kickstarter for Winter Witches, I'm currently working on that. I have a lot of things in the works. I have bookmarks that came in, a sticker. I haven't shown that yet. I did show the bookmarks in the vlog that got posted today, so go check that out. It's super cute. I do plan to send out signed copies of Winter Witches through the Kickstarter, and I have kind of a fun idea to do like a sweatshirt. I did post like a mock-up I created today. I did post that on I think it was Instagram on my stories. So maybe we'll do that, maybe not. So things are happening, a lot of things considering everything on my plate. So thank you guys. You guys are so nice. Huh. I love I love the little community that we have on this channel. You guys are so nice and leave such encouraging messages on my videos. Every time I see one, I feel a little bit better because sometimes I'm having a really bad day. Sometimes getting through the workday is really difficult for me, especially because I want so badly to write just about all the time. But it's really hard sometimes to come home and turn my brain off when it's been a really busy and kind of stressful day. As much as I want to write, sometimes I have a really hard time getting out of that funk. But your comments always help me. So thank you guys so much for leaving them. Continue to do that, please. It's so nice for me. And I'm sure that other people appreciate it too that read through the comments. So thank you guys. Okay, now that I've rambled enough because we've actually gone kind of a long time for that sprint, and I know it's all my fault because I'll talk a long time. So now, sprint number 2, 20 minutes on the clock. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, sprint. All right. How did we all do? Let me tally my word count real quick. I thought I was going to surpass and reach 68,000, but I'm just shy. 67,828 is where I left off. And because my math skills are not great, let me double check and make sure I'm right in my count. 67, 828. Yes. That is, yep, just as usual for Sunday night streams. I have increased my word count for sprint number 2. I am at 5,000. Oh, I wish. 572 words. So I have made quite a bit of progress in the last 2 sprints. All right. How has everyone else done? Do we feel good? Everyone hanging in there? It is, at least where I am, Central Standard Time. It is 9:30. Moving right on along. I'm starting to get into some of the more the downhill slide of the book. I'm starting to get to that point in the book where things start to, like, the tension starts to build a little more. There's this one detail I just got to, which is why the timer caught me right in the middle. It's the piece that kind of tips everything. So I am super excited to get through the end of the book because that's where things really heat up. Exciting. So, how are we all doing? Rita said, I'm typing up this round of revisions, got 2 pages completed. That is a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot when you take it, like when you put it in the form of pages. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually quite a few words. I think that's why writers like to work in words so much of the time, is because it makes it sound like we're doing a lot more than sometimes we actually are. If we just talked about it in pages, that could be kind of discouraging. That's how I used to look at writing, was how many pages I got done. And at the time, in some ways it made sense. I used to write by hand when I was a kid. It wasn't until I think junior and maybe senior year of high school that I had a lot more, at least, accessibility to a laptop. So most of my writing was done by hand. And so the easiest way to track it was by pages, right? So it wasn't until actually fairly recently that I started tracking by word. Crazy. Okay. Is anyone listening to anything in particular? I'm listening to my playlist for this book. Every time that I write a book, I create a playlist as I go. It's not something that I do in advance. It's definitely something I add to as I go. And I create these playlists on YouTube primarily. So I make them on YouTube, and usually after or up to just about publication, I actually make the playlist public. So you can go and listen to the playlist that I listened to while writing the book if you would like to. So that is what I'm listening to currently, is that playlist. I will say, I think this playlist is the longest. There's the most, it definitely is the longest. It has the most songs included. There are a couple videos I included in the playlist that are like compilations. So they have, so there might not be as many videos, but there are a couple in there that have like 8 to 12-ish songs in them. So Definitely have. This is definitely the longest playlist I've created. That is what I'm listening to as I write. Rita says, these pages are so scratched up and blue. I color coded my POV characters. My first draft is always in pencil in the notebook. There's something about physically writing a book that is really satisfying. I kind of like writing that way. Um, Sometimes I miss it because in some ways it forces your brain to slow down because I don't know about you, but I can type really fast anymore since I've done it so long. But when I physically write something, I have to slow down as I write. So I think when I write physically like that, when I actually write by hand, I have to slow down and I catch mistakes as I go. I'm a little more thoughtful about the sentences that I am creating. So there's definitely some pros and cons to it. So I could see why writing by hand, especially for like a first draft, could be beneficial because you, in some ways, you kind of edit as you go. You have to, because you do write slower. Priestess meditation music on YouTube at the moment. It's usually Viking music or Celtic. Yes, with my fantasy books, um, not the fantasy I've written up to this point, which is much more urban fantasy, but my books that are truly a fantasy world, I I listen to a lot of Viking and Celtic music. Um, the Dragon book. I've talked just a little bit about this project. The Dragon book is planned for about summer-ish, so a year, next year-ish, I'll release that book, and it is a true fantasy. The world is separate from ours. It's the first fantasy book I will be publishing that is truly a fantasy book, not an urban fantasy. And for that one, I've written pieces of it as I've gone. So I've already created a little bit of the playlist, and that playlist is entirely Viking music. So I know what you mean. It definitely sets the mood, doesn't it? I write quicker than I type. Ooh, I make too many mistakes. Huh. Wow. When I was in high school, that was me. I definitely wrote by hand quicker than I typed. My dad is impressed since I normally don't listen to classical music and he loves it. I hated road trips as a kid. We would ask him to change the radio to some words in the music. That sounds like my house. I am married to a music major. My husband used to be, when we first met, he was the band slash not music, orchestra director at our high school. He was the head orchestra director. He assisted with the band. So orchestra is really his like whole area, any string music, but he can play a ton of different instruments proficiently. Piano is about the only thing he's not real great at. But anything with a string, he can usually play real well. So I know what you mean. When we go on road trips or just about anywhere, he puts on the classical station, and you can guarantee that you're not going to hear a single word until the radio host comes on to then introduce and give you the background for the next piece. So I know what you mean. I'm living it right now. I do enjoy classical music though. It helps me zone out. So it's very relaxing for me. But when I'm writing, not so much. When I write, it kind of depends on what I'm writing at that time. All of my urban fantasy stuff has more of a, a little bit of like a pop element to it. So we'll see. I might introduce a few more classics into my Dragon book project. All right. It is 9:40. Usually we wrap up by 10 o'clock, so we probably need to move into our final sprint of the night very soon. Rita says, me too. I also listen to rock and country. I love rock music. It is my favorite. It is really the default. at my house. I love rock music. If I'm not super happy with the radio or I'm not in the mood, I'll put on rock music. Okay, I think now would be a good time to move into our third sprint of the night. So make sure that you are subscribed to the newsletter. We talked a little bit about it earlier. I just sent out the newsletter and the update about the shop. I'll be sharing other fun things as they happen, specifically like the Kickstarter. I'm planning to launch that in September, so we have a little time, but if you could go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter, you won't miss out. Same thing with Patreon. Patreon members are the only people who get all of my early drafts. For instance, they have already read Winter Witches. The only thing that has really changed from the early draft is some of the elements that I'm adding, like I talked about at the beginning of our stream. It's very much more new adult. So there are a few things I'm adding to it that were not in the draft they read, but my Patreon members always get all of the news ahead of time and they get early drafts like that. So they've already had Winter Witches for a whole year. So they've already read it. So if you would like to also read my horrible rough drafts, because they definitely have typos and things, but if you are curious what they look like, you can get them through Patreon. Okay. 20 minutes on the clock for our final sprint of the night. Sprint number 3. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, sprint. Holy moly. Okay. So that was sprint number 3, the final sprint for the entire night. Let me tally my words. 68, 307. Holy. So I wrote 479 words for the sprint, which is good. I'm happy. I am happy with the total. Very happy. That means that for the stream, and also because I haven't written all day, I wrote 1,465 words. So I'm in a really good place. I am in the middle of a pretty big scene. So my plan is to at least finish the scene. So I'm going to write a little bit longer tonight. Not a ton, but just a little. We have a new person who joined us, superstar Sean R. Arnold. Hello. Welcome to the stream. You caught just the end of it. Rita said, thanks for sprinting. I really needed a night sprint. Thanks for joining. It's always fun to write with other people. It's a little like having coworkers to me. I love it. So thank you guys for joining me. I get a lot out of working with others. So thank you guys so much. And I can't think of much else to say. That was the last sprint of the night. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm trying to think of what else is coming this week. Wednesday, I'm a little behind. I was supposed to get the July recap out last Wednesday, but I was a little behind on my schedule because I've been so busy. So the July recap should come out this Wednesday. I'll be back on track. I'm sorry, guys. It just pushed everything back a week, which kind of worked out for me because I was missing a week of content. So it worked out for me. I kind of needed the time just to take for myself. So next week will be the July recap. And then the week after will be the what I learned while writing a series, because this is the first series I have published beginning to end. So lots of things to come, and that's pretty much it. So hopefully I will see you guys next week for our writing stream. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you, Felicia. You guys are amazing. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.